Hey, Wrestling Travel, Brittani Nikole here, and I am so excited for today because we have none other than the perfect Storm himself, Tim Storm. Tim, thank you so much for joining me.
Brittany, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and um, you know, I want to learn more about what you're doing and where we're going with it. This is going to be fun.
I just want to go all the way back. I want to go all the way back in the beginning. We're just going to start from the beginning, work our way to now, because I want to know everything about you. And I don't have any time limit on the interview, which is great
Okay.
because we could go for days if we wanted to.
Okay. All right. I'm good. Well,
But I just wanted to
you may
know.
regret saying that. We'll see.
I don't think I will, but we'll see. We'll see if it can actually go on YouTube, the length of what we're going to
Okay.
talk about. I want to start because it's something that I think is a basic question, but it's something that people need to hear is why professional wrestling? Why, of all the things that you could do and of all the things that you do, why?
I started I started really late in life, right? All of those things, at least athletically and even business wise, I did a lot of those things before I ever got into wrestling. But the seed was planted when I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old. I live in the Dallas area now, but I grew up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and it's the central location in Arkansas. We got um, we got Lawler's Memphis promotion in the morning on Saturday morning on TV.
Yeah.
The afternoon, I got Georgia Championship Wrestling, which is the NWA, and at
Yeah.
night I got World Class, which was the Von Erichs. So I got wrestling on Saturdays 3 times a day, and on Saturday that's what I planned on doing. So it wasn't necessarily cartoons I mean, I planned my days around that. And I don't want to say fell in love, but I just absolutely loved everything about it. And then as an athlete, I mean, I've done a lot of things athletically. I think I was a pretty good athlete in high school and college. I played football in college. I did things after, and I was always looking for that next challenge. And as my basketball body, knees, back, all those things started hurting, I started looking for something else. And I didn't start wrestling until I was 30 years old, and it was just the next challenge. I didn't know if I could do it or not, but that was the next challenge. But the passion was planted early, early.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, you say you started late in life, but I find a lot of wrestlers now up and coming, if they don't start super, super young, like in their teens, they're starting in their 30s now. It's like this weird divide where you've got either they've started when they were like 16 or they
Right.
started when they were in their 30s. And
Yeah.
it's great to see people starting even late in life because it doesn't matter what age, as long as you can go, you can go.
Right. Well, and I think it's all speculation, right? Because when you can't redo the past. I wonder now if not taking my first bump until I was 30 or 31 benefited me in the long run, because that's 25, almost 26 years ago, and that's a lot of bumps in that time. But I didn't use up my bump card from 16 to 30, right? So maybe
Right.
that helped me. I also think a lot of it is today's technology athletically and training and nutrition and all the different things you can do. I think now we're better prepared for our bodies to athletically handle things as opposed to 30 years ago, right? I mean, you just went out there and did it till your body broke down.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that you haven't done it till your body broke down because you've still got a ways to go.
uh,
And other than that, what has been your latest focus on all of this? What have you been focusing on more now? I mean, currently we're in a pandemic, but what up until this and into the future do you have going?
my focus for a really long time has been the National Wrestling Alliance. That's it, of those 3 programs that I watched on Saturday morning, on Saturdays, the one that really drew me in was Georgia Championship Wrestling because, and wrestling fans know this. I mean, it was the Four Horsemen, with Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. It was Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors. It was Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2. I mean, it was legit. It was an amazing list of people that drew you in. So to me, the NWA was wrestling. When I had the chance maybe 15 years ago to get involved on a really small level with the NWA, the guy who asked me to help out, I just committed to, and I said, I'm going to do whatever it is that I can do to try to grow that. It may be nothing. At that point, when you're doing one NWA show in literally at a motorcycle rally in a rodeo arena in nowhere, Oklahoma, well, you
Right.
don't know, and that's all that was true. You legitimately don't know if you could help or not, right? But I
Right.
knew those letters. I knew the NWA, and I knew what I wanted to be a part of it, and that's what I focus on now. It's not the only thing I do. I'm involved with some other things, but I won't take credit for anything the NWA has done. But as far as the rebirth, but it's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
I've loved seeing you be a part of it. It really has. I mean, I know you won't take credit, but you have helped in a way, very much so, doing your part, and everyone doing their part, very much so, in the rebirth of the NWA. So thank you for that.
It's a deal where it so much of wrestling and life in general is right place, right time, right? I mean, you just have to be the right person in the right place at the right time. And it turned out that I was a pretty good bridge as far as to bridge the old NWA regime to the new NWA, to bridge old school wrestling with new, with a newer form of wrestling. And again, if I helped with that, and I know that I benefited. I know the NWA benefited, but it was the genius of William Patrick Corrigan, Billy Corrigan and Dave Lagana that had a vision and said, we think you have a good story. Let's tell that story. And to be honest, that was not easy for me to do. To open up my real life to what could be millions of people
Right.
was a tough commitment on my part. But it was, we built that trust and we got there.
uh, Opening up your life to uh, millions of people in that kind of sense. Was there any kind of mental preparedness? Did you have to go home and talk it with the family? Did you have to talk to mama? Like, did
Well,
you
no,
have
no,
to?
all of those are good questions, and it's like um, I'm an old school guy. I mean, wrestling, I'm a good bridge. I see both sides. I can work both sides. But for me, wrestling was you protected personally. I protected three things. I didn't want anybody to know how old I was. I didn't want to be the guy in the locker room was, you know how old that guy is, right? I mean, I never wanted to be that guy.
Right.
Uh, I protected my personal life from an employment standpoint. How can you be, regardless of whether you're working face or heel, how can you be a world class professional wrestler when really you're an eighth grade school teacher, right? I mean, that I didn't want anybody to know that, so I protected
Right.
that, and then I protected my family. And that's again, that's just old school. You don't bring your family in. You don't show anybody your family because you don't want anything that you do in the ring to have, to affect your family.
Correct.
And when Dave and Billy said, here's what we believe. We believe that wrestling is about telling stories, and that everybody has a story, and we love your story. Would you let us tell that story? And I won't even say it took convincing. It was just more over a period of time we built a level of trust. And once I trusted them, and they trusted me because they had to trust me too to represent their promotion.
Right.
Once we learned that trust with each other, um, we just let it go. And the fun thing about working with those guys is they have never handed me a piece of paper and said, okay, here's what we want you to say, or here are your bullet points even, right? Um, even with Dave on all those 10 pounds of gold episodes, we would do exactly what you and I are doing right now.
Oh,
He would just,
wow.
yeah, he would just ask me a question and I would answer the question. Probably the only direction he ever gave me was when you answer the question, uh, state the question back to me. That was it. So if he said, hey, Tim, what's it like being a teacher? I would say, well, let me tell you what it's like. In order to be a teacher, I would have to restate it. But other than that, we just talked.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, and I was very fortunate because there's a really good chance that I could have done all that and nobody would have responded, right? I
Right.
mean, what if the however many people watched it went, wow, that guy's a jerk, or yeah, I'm not interested. Um, Everything that Dave and Billy did was the production levels were fantastic. The everything was put together perfectly, and they made me look. I mean, I was just being me, but they made me look great.
I mean, and that's hard to do, is to just talk and know that it's going to be broadcasted and to get it out, eloquently. Because when you're thinking about things, you have a tendency to stumble over your words and try
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on. So, I mean, kudos to you for being able to just tell your story and be able to get it all out for people to believe and understand it.
Well, I think part of that comes from my background. I have 2 degrees, but one of them was in communication. So there's that. Um, I've been wrestling for 25 years now, so I've been in front of people a lot. And then probably the thing that tied it all together was, as a school teacher, in today's climate, you have to be very careful with everything you say. And I've just over the years, I've developed a little bit of a self filter where I filter it before I say it, so that when I say it, it comes across hopefully the way I want it said, right?
Right.
Every once in a while that won't happen, right? I mean, and luckily in most cases, I mean, shoot, if Dave wanted to bury me in real life, he could go back to all that footage that he didn't use, right? He could probably make me look any way he wanted to if he wanted, but
He's
it's.
using that for blackmail later.
Oh, no, no. He's joked about that. He's joked about taking some of those scenes from 10 pounds of gold, and he said all I have to do is re-edit these, and I can. And I was like, I trust you, Dave. I trust you. And the other thing is, when you're walking around with you know, the way that works is you basically have a live mic on all the time, right? Whether the camera's on you or not. So there's footage where we're walking around. If I'm joking about something, or if I say something just to Dave, he could take that and put it anywhere else, and it wouldn't be funny anymore, right? So
Right.
it's anyway, it's things you have to be aware of.
I mean, that's great. And that's something that a lot of people aren't when there's a live mic or even anything like in the back or in the locker room.
Right?
Like sometimes I know from being in locker rooms, I have to remind them, like, this mic is on. Do not say anything. Like, do not say what you're going to say because they will hear it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, you're aware of it. You have to have other people aware of it too. And but that's the fun of doing this stuff. Anything can happen. A lot of times it does. It's and wrestling in general, if you look at it that way. We had a group conversation the other day, kind of, and talking about the beginning year of the NWA, and you know, it's not just what you say and how you say it or what you do. It's what comes after that, because in a lot of cases it goes a whole different direction than you meant for it to go, and can still work, right? But that's all that I have believed for a very long time. You've been in every aspect of wrestling. So much of who you are, who I become as a wrestler, depends on what the booker and the promoter want me to be, right? Because they can put me in
Right.
any situation, and how I respond to that situation could be completely different, but they can control by how much airtime or ring time. So it's a group effort when you, and I don't want to say create anyone, because I think what the world sees is just me, right? I don't, even in the
Right.
ring, I'm not a character. I'm just me amplified a little bit.
Right. And I think some of those are the best quote unquote characters, if they're going to call them characters. I think that speaks so true to wrestling being at its realest form, is when you are you, just turned up a couple
Right.
notches. And I
Well,
feel that's great.
one of my favorite quotes from it's from Mick Foley's first book. Um, he was talking with somebody about finding their gimmick, finding their character, and he said that he believed that finding who he was really was throwing as much stuff against the wall as he could, and whatever sticked was going to be what he was. And he said, but the funny thing is, what stuck really was who I was anyway, right? So
Right.
I think in wrestling in general, not to get all philosophical, but I think people try to become something, right? I mean, they say, I've always loved this person, or they're this wrestler or this actor. I want to be like that. But if that's so far away from who you really are, it's just hard to convince anybody.
Exactly. And if you don't convince anybody, you're not going to get
Yeah,
any reaction.
that's right. That's right. I mean, not only do I have to believe it, they have to too, right? So
Right.
if I whatever I'm pretending to be, they're going to see through that and see that I'm just pretending.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of pretending or not pretending, as it were, I mean, I want to also talk about your other passions. What else do you do besides, you know, setting up all of this media and doing stuff for NWA and for other promotions and working like crazy, and also being a teacher, like what do you fish? Do you hunt? Do you collect things?
Well, that's the first time somebody's asked me that, and boy, this is going to be really a really boring answer. I have I did a lot of things getting to this point, right? I mean, I did a lot of athletics, I did a lot of things like that, but I guess one of the reasons why I can juggle my job and wrestling is my true passion is and has always been professional wrestling, right? I mean, it's that's not the focus of my life. That's the focus of my wrestling life.
Right.
So almost everything I do, I don't know, boy, that kind of sounds sad now that I think about it.
No.
Almost everything I do is how I eat, what I do in my off time. Well, prior to the gym's closing, right, was everything I do was preparing for the ring, preparing for that, and um,
That's
I have a lot of.
amazing.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty one dimensional now that I say it that way.
No,
I,
no, that's the thing is like you've done a lot of things in your life. You have a lot of aspects of yourself, but to dedicate yourself to pro wrestling, like that's a huge thing. That's a hard dedication to do, especially eating, training, working, going like that. It ain't easy.
No. Hey, let me, Kat, and I know you mentioned you were going to bring this up. Here's the difference, though, right? You told me that you interviewed one of my best friends, James Beard, right?
Yes.
And one of the just amazing things about James is I love telling people random facts about him, right? Because for me, it's like, oh, Tim wrestles and he's a teacher. Okay, there you got it. That's it, right? And
Yeah.
they know my family. They know. Okay, with James, it's just like I just like shocking people, and it'll be like, well, did you know that James once won a pool tournament in Las Vegas as a professional pool player? They're like, what? Well, okay, he
I
actually
did
finished
not.
third. He actually finished third, but okay, all right. But hey, James, do you play golf? Well, a little bit. Well, what'd you shoot yesterday? I think I shot a 72. I only play like twice a year, right? Um, I don't know if James told you. Did James tell you he was a professional singer before he got into wrestling?
No.
Did he tell you that George Strait opened for him, or that he worked with Waylon Jennings, or
No,
that
he didn't tell me. See, what he told me was that if I just brought up his name
Yeah,
to you, you would become his hype man,
I
and
am?
and we would just spend the rest of the time hyping him up.
Here's my favorite story. James Beard wrote the book of wrestling in Japan.
Yes.
No, no, literally. He worked in the dojos. He's the only, and he's right. I'm now putting him over for the whole interview. It's James is the only referee in history to work for every major promotion in America and Japan, and he worked when he was the liaison between, I guess it was New Japan at the time, which was the biggest one,
Mhm.
and the United States. So he, as all of the great names came through as Americans, he was the guy who took care of them. He refereed. He would spend the time on the road, and he would spend a week in the dojos with them. And what he did is he sat down, he took every American wrestling move and he wrote it down and explained it, and then they
Wow.
translated that into Japanese. So the book that they have used now for 20 years to teach Japanese wrestlers American terms of wrestling was written by James Beard. So I'm just saying, when I say he wrote the book, okay, all right, enough
Here the book.
enough of my friend James. I'm done. Because I could go all day. It's just I have traveled more with him than anybody.
He did. He had some amazing things to say about you, and he said you're his dearest friend,
Yeah,
and we joked. He was like, just mention my name. He's like,
yeah.
and he's like, it'll become a hype fest. He's like, he
It is.
loves hyping me up, and I was like,
Well,
I gotta do it.
it's just like everything else. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, right? And
Yeah.
he has benefited. I've benefited from his friendship. I've benefited from his knowledge. I've benefited from his wrestling. He's been in most of the biggest matches I've been in. He's been the ref, and as a wrestler, if you can, how many times do you get instant feedback from somebody who booked at the Sportatorium, or what I'm saying? So we'd get in the car, go home, and I could say, what did you think about this? And for a long time, James's big thing coming up in old school with Sportatorium was you shouldn't throw punches. Well, that was my go-to move, by the way. Our ongoing joke is I throw a great punch, and he'd go, no, you don't. Well, what do you mean I don't? He goes, well, if you're hitting them so hard, why are there not marks on their face? Right? Obviously, you don't throw it.
Yeah.
So I would, in the middle of a match, James would lean in and go 6. And all he's telling me is, you've thrown 6 punches, or even if he wasn't in my match, I would walk through and he'd go 3, So it's taken me 10 years of travel to stop throwing punches, right? Because anyway, he's also the one without James Beard. I hate to say this, without James Beard, there is no Tim Storm, um, NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. Period.
Wow. Well, there you see,
Yeah.
see,
I-
James.
he was right. He was right. I did, and I'd do it again. I'm not afraid.
Oh, I mean that's great because again in this business it's so any kind of work environment it's hard to find somebody so genuine that can be such a good friend to each other and help each other along the way. So I mean that's something super special in any work or business environment, let alone professional wrestling.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the wrestling world is an interesting phenomenon itself, right?
Yeah.
And I think that some of the newest cliches have been keep your circle small, right? And I've been very fortunate that with James and some other guys, I've had some good friends that are friends outside of wrestling, and I think that's unusual in a lot of cases.
Oh, very much so. And I also just want to talk about your not only outside the ring and your persona and everything, but inside the ring. What has been some of the top? I know a lot of people ask like dream matches and all that kind of stuff, but I want to know about your accomplishments and where you've been. What have been some of your top people to go against in the ring? Because it's a partnership.
Always. Um, I'm very fortunate that I basically trained two different styles. When I trained 26 years ago, it was as old school as you could possibly get. I mean, it was mostly legit shoot wrestling. Training was, this sounds terrible, but it's true. Here's how you break somebody's arm. Now, here's how you get to that point and not break the arm. Um, really didn't smarten us up much at all. We basically got in there and it was a fight until you figured it out. Okay, but out of that, I got solid psychology. I got you better make it real because you got guys that will make it real for you. And then I
Right.
moved to Dallas and I got a second form of training, which was more athletic. It was more lucha and Japanese style, and the psychology wasn't as strong, but I learned a whole different style of wrestling. So because of that, I've had opportunities where I've wrestled a lot of people. And if I started saying, here's my list of guys that I've worked, um, first off, it would really sound name dropish, right? But also in a lot of those cases, it was just me doing what I was supposed to do. I mean, man, if I did quickly, if I said, I don't know, Sabu, AJ Styles, I don't want. There's a long, long list of
Oh, I
guys that
imagine.
I've had, but I've benefited from all that. I don't know that they did, but I benefited from all those guys. So what it comes down to is high points in my career. Um, I worked for a group here in the Dallas area called PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling, and um, it was phenomenal. It was TV, it was local TV, cable, but our group at the time was made up. Now he's exploding again, but Lance Archer, Lance Hoyt, Vance Archer, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Another traveling partner that I was able to travel with that would say, okay, you're supposed to be a big man. Why did you do this? Right. Okay. Um, that lasted for a long time. TCW, Traditional Championship Wrestling, one of the best locker rooms I've ever been in, was a TV thing that was national and international at times. I won a tournament put on by a guy named Johnny Mantell that really kind of gave me a jet propulsion late in my career. That was the Independent World Championship. It was completely different than anything anybody's heard of. It was a tournament where winning was based on points. So you got a point system set up given by judges, and the judges were people like Jake Roberts, Iceman King Parsons, Harley Race, Buck Robley.
Wow.
I mean, the Guerreros. It was this huge list, and you would have a match with somebody, and they rated you in three categories, and the highest, whether you won or not, the highest points from that match moved forward, and became the independent world champion, which I ended up winning that tournament. And Harley Race presented me with the belt, which is beautiful, and
Yeah.
said, You are the new, he said, this is the new world championship. This is before NWA stuff. Um, and then obviously winning the NWA World Championship, 10 pounds of gold, now NWA Power, and how many guys at 56 can say that they're getting the biggest push and opportunity of their career every year? It just seems to get better.
Right. And I mean, I don't know any or very few that could say that. That is something remarkable in itself. And I can't wait for this thing to be over and all of us to be healthy and open up, and then you can continue on with all of the magic that you're
They
doing.
better that it needs to hurry, right? I'm just saying, and that, but I don't want to get all buzzkill, but I know I look at this like every month that we're not doing this is one less month that I will ever get to wrestle, right? So
No,
I
you're
mean,
correct.
let me just, who knows? I've been saying for literally 16 years that I'm almost done, right? So if let's say I could go another year and this shutdown happens for 3 more months, well, I just lost, a fourth of my entire career I have left. So I told James yesterday, I'm ready to get back in the ring and get back doing what I love to do because I don't know how much I got left.
Right. And I mean, the crowd loves you. I've seen you interact with the crowd personally, and the little ones and the fans, and even people like the young kids who maybe not know who you are still react to you. Is that something special to bring up the new generation of fans?
It's in the big picture, it should be why we do what we do, right? Um, it's another Foleyism, but without the fans, we're just people in the ring wrestling or fake fighting in our underwear, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
so without those fans, especially without the young kids. I had a moment, in time when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and um, Mid South came through Pine Bluff, Arkansas, about once or twice a year, and wrestled at the Pine Bluff Convention Center. And the main event was Ken Patera against Andre the Giant. And I watched that match and the finish of the match when Andre picked up Ken Patera for the body slam for the finish. His feet hit the lights, and the lights started swaying, and it was like angels singing, and I mean it was like, oh, I
Wow.
was like, that's the greatest thing. I have to do that, right? I don't know that I can ever provide that for a fan or for especially a young kid. But I know that if I walk over and shake a kid's hand, you can see the look on, or pick them up and hold them up by the ring.
That is amazing. I mean, uh, it is. It is really what we're doing is that kind of thing to give the entertainment and give that kind of special experience to kids like that so that they'll remember it and, maybe do what you did, go become a wrestler, or, bring their kids and all that stuff.
Well, I think 90 whatever percent of all wrestlers were fans coming, growing up. That's why you catch the bug. That's why you want to give it a shot. There's a few out there that do it strictly for the money, but there's not even a lot of those. So if we can do that for anybody, right? That's what we're out there for. Again,
Right.
it's like we see today, especially during this time, having wrestling shows on TV with no fan interaction has changed wrestling, right? You can have a quote unquote 5-star match in front of nobody and
Hmm.
feel good about the match, but I mean, that feeds me. Like if something happens and I feel the fans, with me and cheering and getting louder, it feeds my soul. It's like that's what I'm out here for.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is that inspires me so much to see that, like just being ringside and announcing or doing interviews and stuff like that, that I get to see the reaction of the crowd when wrestlers come out and interact with them and stuff. And that's even just special for me to see because you see it have an impression, a lasting impression on them for that kind of stuff.
Well, you with what you can do, standing in the ring with a microphone, you can feel the crowd's energy and you can tell if they're with you, if they're not with you, if they're hanging on every word, or if you say something and they pop and explode for something you said. That is an addictive feeling, right? It's what you get hungry for is I can't wait to feel that again, right? And that's
Yes.
you can go have you could I could go right now to a friend with a ring and we could have a practice match that's incredible with no crowd reaction, or I can go out in front of the fans and do very little but know that they're with me on everything, and I'll take that every time. You know,
Yeah.
that's the greatest reward is knowing that the crowd is with you, whichever side you're on. You know, if they're hating you, but hate you with all your heart, all their heart, you know, it's a fun thing.
Exactly. Has anyone ever hated you though?
I argue, and I have since, I guess I've changed my mind. Man, I don't want to ruin everything. I think I'm a better heel. I'm a better heel than I am a face. Uh, and it's so much easier, you know, I
Right.
mean, but that's what always scared me a little bit. It's like if what sticks, you know, if what sticks is what you're closest to, I'm not sure what that said about me, right? That I can work face or heel, and um, it's I always thought I was a better heel. I'm not sure that's true anymore. I think uttering one purely unplanned sentence from my mouth may have changed that forever. But when Mama Storm became a thing, I think the heel thing may be gone. You know, it's
Yeah, unless Mama Storm comes out and like, body slams somebody, I think it's gonna be a face thing for you for
it. The
for a
Mama Storm,
while.
Mama Storm is real, and it's like she she's never seen me wrestle as a heel. I don't think.
Right.
Matter of fact, she's barely seen me wrestle because she's so afraid I'm going to get hurt that even if she's there, she turns her head. But
Right. You're her baby boy.
100% I am. That's real. I mean, I can't even show mom matches because her one thing is, now, when did this happen? Because you're here, you're okay, right? You didn't get hurt, did you? So that's every day. That's all the time. You're not wrestling this weekend, are you? Yes, ma'am. Well, and this is her. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. This is like a different country to her. Well, are you going to somewhere like New York or somewhere far away like that? I'm like, Mom, it's not that far. It's not.
How did she feel when that became a thing? Obviously it wasn't planned
Yeah,
for it to become a thing.
it was literally when I said it, I didn't like pause and say, in my mind, it wasn't crowd reaction here. It was like I just said it and then the crowd jumped all over it. Because to me, the coolest thing is showing my mom a crowd chanting for her, right? But I,
Right.
but I also have to be really guarded because, in one of those promos, I talk about my dad leaving, which was all true when I said, she doesn't need to hear that. I mean,
Right.
so she doesn't want to hear that stuff. But it is kind of a very funny, um, weird thing to have my mom say, well, you don't want to make Mama Storm mad. I mean, to have my mom refer to herself in the third person is pretty weird, but you know,
I
she is everything I said she is. She's a special lady.
I think that's fantastic. My cat is trying to join our interview here. Uh, she's
Let
she
her join.
somehow made it. She somehow made it into the room. My cat did, and she's trying to join the interview.
Let her join. I love animals. Good.
She is being she is being a little terror right now. So you're just
Well,
gonna sit right on my lap.
and like we're not on video, right? So they can't see that you're wearing cat ears, right?
They can see I'm wearing
Okay.
cat ears.
Okay. All
Yes,
right. Good.
yeah, they'll
Okay.
be able
Good.
to they'll be able to see. This is my I guess I don't know. I do have a microphone professionally I could
Uh,
hook up and stuff, but this is like a
that's
little
way better.
thing yeah, to set apart. I rhinestoned them myself too.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's my other thing is like I rhinestone like wrestling gear and stuff like
Oh,
that.
no.
So I've been doing all of that fun work and all that stuff. But I mean, I love moms like that. My mom is the same way when it comes to, even though I don't get in the wrestling ring. When I first told her about wrestling, she's like, "You're not you're not gonna wrestle or anything, right? Like you're not gonna get hurt, right?" And every time I'm in the ring and like I'm a part of some angle or something like that, she's like, "You're not you're not gonna get hit or anything. You're gonna be okay, right?"
Well, that's the way it should be for moms. She has my full support, and I'm with her. You got to take care of your babies.
Yes, yes, you do. Now, speaking of that, what else besides your mom and the fans and everything, what else inspires you? What else inspires you just in life in general? Is it for a certain thing? Is it a different kind of level?
Uh, I've always been a big family guy, and uh, my kids now are grown, but my grown kids are having kids. So, and that's inspiring in itself. They always said it's better to be a grandfather than a father. It's easier because you can spoil them and send them home or whatever. But now there are 5 grandkids, and that's pretty special. It's my kids have my heart, my grandkids have my heart in a whole different way. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
it's a different level, and I wouldn't have believed it. On the other side of that, like I said, if you can send them home eventually, so it's not a life commitment. That's both good and bad, but yeah, my family has always been super supportive, and actually, I didn't dive all the way into wrestling until at least until my kids were out of high school. So, I mean, I was in and I was doing a lot, but once there were no longer football games and theater and debates and baseball games to go to, then I was actually able to dedicate the weekends and the travel, more. But yeah, family's huge, and I think it should be for everybody. It's not for everybody, but it should be.
Right, 100%. I agree because that is the base that makes all of us
Yeah.
who we are. So, and jumping way off the family topic, but you mentioned about traveling and working around schedules and stuff. How is that working with you being a teacher? Also, do some of your students watch NWA and all that kind of stuff?
They do. Um, I really try to separate those two worlds. I know that's
Yeah.
weird, and it's not
No.
easy to do, but I think I've made this comment, but if I'm standing in front of a class of 30, 25, 30 students, whatever, regardless of what I'm talking about, history, if I'm teaching history and I'm talking about the Bill of Rights and, the difference in the Ninth and 10th Amendment, they don't need to be picturing me wearing my wrestling gear. I'm just saying that's not what they should be focused on. So I really try to separate it. It's not that I don't recognize it,
Right.
and some of them it becomes a game. Where well they'll walk down the hall and I'll hear Tim Storm. You know, you know or they'll throw up my old symbol of stuff or whatever. I They know it, they recognize it, but I try to keep them on task. The balance is difficult. As the NWA power got rolling and we started doing pay-per-views and TV tapings, and in some cases that was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or I have limited days off.
Right.
And there were times when it was like, okay, what would be the worst thing that could happen if you didn't show up to school tomorrow? I'm like, not an option. But
Right.
Dave and Billy understand and knew that beforehand. So in a
Right.
lot of cases, what that means is, and I'm fighting it too because there's nothing I'd rather do, right, than wrestle. And in the NWA Power world, if I miss a day, I've really missed 3 weeks of TV,
Right.
right? Because it's 3 episodes. So I want to be there. So in a lot of cases, what we've worked out, and it's always a juggling act. It's okay. I can do pay-per-view on Friday. I can take a day off, right? And then I can do Saturday. But on Sunday, let's say it doesn't start until 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and I can make. They'll try to book all my stuff in the first 2 episodes, even if they want me on the third. And then I mean, there was a night where it was a 6-man tag that was me, Robert Gibson, Eli against um, Tom Latimer, Royce Isaacs, and Scott Steiner. The match finished. I had already packed up my gear. It was already in the car, and
Wow.
as I mean, sprint to the. Actually, that particular night we had to ship my bags because I wasn't going to be able to make it through baggage check in time. And
Right.
got to the gate with 4 minutes to spare to find out there had been a gate change and had to go across the airport. Anyway, it's always a balance. Um,
Right.
and really the balance is I know where I want to be, right? But I also know the commitment I have to my students, and that's tough. But yeah,
I mean, I
both
feel like from
both
an
fun.
authority, I feel like from authority wise though, the fact that they know that you can like slam somebody into the ground might be a good thing for you.
I I've made this comment before. I'm not scared to make it. I actually work heel as a teacher. So it's I am not afraid to I am not they're eighth graders, they're 13, 14 years old.
Yeah,
I I am not afraid to use my presence, to make a point if I need to. But you have to again, have to be careful. But I'm not afraid to lean in and go, are we developing a problem? You know.
yeah.
So it's
No problem.
and that's usually no, 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 no problem. So it's that's teaching. It's
That's
about they what's the term they use? They proximity is a teaching tool, right? So if you're standing where you
yeah.
need to be, so yeah, it's a challenge, but it's fun.
I mean, it's everything that you do is such a great balance, and I know there's some crazy stories or moments that have probably happened that people are like, "What?" And if there was to be a documentary of your life, because nowadays they're doing a lot of documentaries on wrestlers or doing shows about the background of wrestling and all that kind of stuff, what would be some of the highlights that people would not really necessarily know very well if they're not avidly following Tim Storm? What would be some of the highlights of a documentary of your life?
I think a lot of that, and that's a really deep question. Well done. That's I think that a lot of it would be centered around getting the journey to get there, the challenges, because there were tons of challenges. Um, I think that overcoming physical issues, especially as you get older, is a big part of life for me. What's hurting what day? How do I work around that? Um, and then really that transition from the former NWA ownership to the current NWA ownership was a very not tense, but potentially tense and dramatic time for me, right?
Right.
Um, because of a non-disclosure clause in the contract, nobody knew. So
Right.
I was literally sitting in my classroom when it was announced in Las Vegas at the CAC convention, and my phone was sitting off to the side, and I think I was entering grades while they were taking a test, and my phone just started blowing up, just bang, 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 bang.
Wow.
Because you would think that the NWA World Champion representing the company would know before it sold that they had sold, right? Uh,
Right.
but because of the non-disclosure, nobody knew. So that period of time between the announcement, talking to Dave, talking to Billy, wondering what's going to happen, is this new? And I remember telling James, I think it's very possible that, with their background in wrestling, they're probably going to want to make an impact pretty quick. I can see them going with a much younger, much better known wrestler to be the face of their company. How's that going to happen? How's that going to make sense? What's that going to do to me? When's it going to happen?
Right.
Right. I could not have written this story any better for me. It's a good
I
thing.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I've watched since they first started airing Power, and the story arc and everything that's going on is fantastic. And I do believe that NWA is one of the best right now, bringing in up and coming talent and showing people all aspects of the wrestling business, as it were, and giving people really a chance to shine and be themselves.
Right. Well, and again, I think that's their strength. Um, they have never. Well, let me tell you this story fairly quickly. Like the very first episode 1 of NWA Power, none of us really knew what to expect. Maybe Dave and Billy did. I don't know. But I think that I was told, okay, we want to make this full circle with you and Nick. We've had this story. We want to bring it all the way back around. We think that would be a really good way to kick off the first show. And Dave said, you kind of just be prepared. We're going to give you some promo time, about 60 seconds, 90 seconds, before the match to kind of set the stage. That's not a problem. That doesn't bother me at all. I like that. But I was worried that I couldn't get my message out, that I couldn't connect with the fans the way I wanted to in
Right.
60 seconds, right? And their philosophy is it's a live audience, a live crowd. It's going to go on TV. Here's the mic, sink or swim, right? I mean,
Wow.
it's not, hey, go out there and here's what you say, right? And you have to just memorize it and repeat it because that's not real. They didn't ask me what I was going to say. They didn't ask me anything, but I wasn't worried. I was more worried about time. And as I'm standing at Gorilla, which, that potentially a really big match for me, right?
Hmm.
Billy walks up before I go through the curtain and he goes, "Don't worry about the time. We trust you completely. Cut your promo. Do whatever you want to do." And I just the only worry that I had was lifted off my shoulders. Now again, I
Right.
don't know if the crowd's going to respond to what I'm going to say, but
Right.
I know I'm going to speak from my heart, right? Um, that was a big moment, and not bigger than winning it the first time, but it was big for me. It was big for NWA Power to kick off on a good note,
Right.
and I still read where some people say that's their favorite match of 2 seasons. That's a compliment, right? Now let me again, I just the way I am. Nick gets that credit, right? Because you never work alone. Brian Hebner was the ref. We all worked together. Camille was at ringside. The announcers did their job. I mean, it did a great job. Anyway, it's a team effort, but
Mhm.
that was a big moment.
That's fantastic. And I mean, you have so much more to give
Uh,
to the wrestling world. And I don't think you only have a year left. I think you have many, many more. Again,
uh,
maybe another 10 years,
oh
16
my.
plus. Let's go. Let's keep you just shoot for the stars. You don't know.
I don't know. I am nowhere near mentally ready to stop. Uh,
Good.
there will
That's good
come
to
a
hear.
time when my body is physically ready to stop. It doesn't mean that I won't be a part of wrestling, but 10 years, okay, I'll shoot for that. That's a good goal.
Yeah, let's shoot. I mean, I'm sure it'll be more, but we'll shoot for that. Do you see when you do decide to stop working in ring as a wrestler, do you see yourself working backstage, maybe, producing, promoting, booking, that kind of thing?
Yes. Um, and it's some things that I've already started kind of working toward. I've booked off and on for a long time.
Hmm.
Uh, James has a promotion that he is the head booker for. So I've helped agent matches. I've helped book matches with, Dave and Billy have given me additional responsibilities on the production side on, some of those kind of things. Uh, those of you who are mentally able to promote, I admire that. That is not in me at all. But I hope to be a part of the business in some regard for a long time.
Well, I hope so too, and I know a lot of people out there watching this are going to watch this. They're going to hope so too. So I'm excited for that. But before we wrap it up and say goodbye, let me know all your social media. Let know people where they can find you, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, the biggest two are probably just like everybody else. Tim Storm NWA for Twitter, Tim Storm 01 for Instagram. I've never been a big social media person, and I've got people that are trying to gently help me along the way with those things. Um, but I know that on Twitter that I'm getting close to 10,000, and for some reason that kind of excites me. I don't know why, but I'm
Oh,
like,
it should. That's a big thing.
I want to get there, right? On Instagram, I don't know where I'm at, but I'm not even close. So please hit me up, follow. I usually respond to messages as long as they're, in the right in the right context. So, um, but yeah, please hit it up, follow. Biggest thing is support wrestling, support independent wrestling. Um, watch NWA Power. I don't know when you'll have this out there, but I know the newest thing for NWA is NWA Carneyland, which will be this next Tuesday. I'm excited about to see where that goes because they always exceed expectations, and I don't know what to expect. So it's going to be fun. But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. And for everybody out there, I'm Brittany Nicole for Wrestling Travel. Make sure you like and subscribe to Wrestling Travel's YouTube. And if you like us, tell your friends. If you don't like us, tell your enemies. Whatever, we'll take their likes too. So thank you so much, Tim. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.